It was an awesome place to grow up, chock full of kids. Behind us, the Masunases, there were 3 kids. Next door, the Kazinks were 3 girls, and the Zerns, and the Millers, the Doyles.
Everybody was working class. You know, it was a blue collar, post-war. Those houses were all built in the 50s. We moved in there, I think must have been 56. And they were the same house. There's probably 500 of them. It's just a matter of whether, your L was on the right or the left. They were all little L-shaped, 3-bedroom, 1 bathroom.
Almost everybody was somebody's age. I hung out with the Zerns all the time, as the 3 girls. In my younger days, the parents would always have a party. The next door neighbor had these silhouettes of really sexy looking women, and that was like the cool thing to go in his garage.
We were allowed as kids, when I was 9 years old, I remember going on 20-mile bike hikes with a lunch bag and just telling my mom we're going for a ride. And that was always okay. So we had a lot of freedom, but we hung around a lot in our neighborhood. They coffee clutched a lot. We call it coffee clutching. Every morning, the mothers would come there, get together at someone's house, 4 to 6 of them, and have coffee. So everybody knew each other inside and out.
I do remember when dinners were still big, when it was multiple chickens, when it was racks and racks of ribs, it was a lot of spaghetti, and and I'm sure you've heard this from other people, my mom was never allowed to serve pizza because pizza was a snack.
We always sat down, and Michael being the favorite, I don't know, because I sat next to my father, just letting you know.
My mom cooked good back in the old days, and there was a lot of food, but never enough. Boys need a lot of food. If you could grab a piece of food before somebody else, you did, with no problem. And if my dad wasn't looking, you could get a ketchup sandwich. You could put your bread in there, and just so you get some protein kind of stuff,
The winter when my dad wasn't working, we'd have meatloaf. There was a whole box of Rice Krispies in it to stretch it. She'd make 2 or 3 meatloafs because of all of us, and probably 5 pounds of potatoes every day. And it would go around, and it wasn't going to come by twice. Pat always put a ton of ketchup on it. Pat was always the one who had to take the bread and clean his plate, because he put too much ketchup on there. So the ketchup sandwich at the end of every meal was his dessert.
You know what sucked? What really sucked, especially if the rest of these guys see this. My dad sat at the head of the table, and every year, everybody else got to move away from my dad. I don't know why. I never got to move, and I had to stay there forever. It was unfair, and I want everybody to know that. It was not right that I had to stay there for all those years.
We fought for entertainment. We fought for...
Who was the biggest bully?
He wasn't a bully, it was a pecking order.
Chaos. I'd often just take, first, in the summertime, I'd make them go outside, just keep the babies in. Because I was 10, 12 years old, I couldn't control them.
Yeah.
I'd just put them outside, lock the doors, and just deal with the babies.
We played with everything. We played, I have a cut right here, because me and Pat played volleyball in the bedroom. And we were playing it, and I hit it, and hit the light shade, and it broke. And Patrick started crying. I said, "Are you all right? You're all right?" He said, "It's not me, it's you." And I was bleeding all over the place.
Tommy was the worst.
How come?
Because to this day, I can never go on anything that goes around. Because we had a chair in the living room that would spin. But he made me sit in that chair. He got me in it somehow, and he spun it. And he would spin it super fast, and I couldn't get out of it. And he did it so much that I got sick, and I threw up.
I wore Huskies. And Bill tormented me about being overweight and having boy boobs, and which I did have. And it's just interesting how things turn out. This would be good now. You cut me, and then you cut to him, and then cut back to me.
Patrick used to make me ride my bike up to the Jewel Market, and he'd write a note, saying, "This is Billy's mom, please let him buy a pack of cigarettes." And it was a mile each way, or a box of Bazooka bubble gum. You got, I think, 100 pieces of bubble gum for 55 cents. So that was torture. The best is Bobby. Bobby tried to light his fart, and it backfired. Actually, there was a suction involved, and he burned his butthole.
I remember one time going into my mom's room, and my head, I could feel the blood's coming down my head. And I go to my mom and it's like, Mom, I did my head. She looked at me with one eye and it's like, put a towel on it, go back to bed, we'll go in half an hour.
Tom was always the instigator. He would start it with Michael, and he would just tease everybody till they were all crying, and then he would go, like real happy, now my job is done.
My father would make weird projects. And one day we were told to go up into the willow tree and cut every tree that was not an inch or larger off the trunk.
As smart as he was cutting the branch he's cutting the branch that he was standing on.
The limb he was standing on that he had already started cutting gave way.
The one below him started to break until he reached up and grabbed the one above him, which also broke.
Sawing a branch, and then for some reason didn't finish that branch, went to saw another branch, stood on the branch he had already sawed.
I started cutting on a tree, but my father told me to go up higher, so I actually stepped on the branch that I was already cutting. So I was about 20 feet up in the air. And I was cutting a branch, and the weight gave out, and so I fell 20 feet.
The bobby went down. And my father was, get back up there.
I think I said, you're an asshole. Just something to that effect.
And like I said, plane stopped, and the whole birds stopped chirping. Everybody just like, whoa.
And my father said, what did you say? And Bobby took off to Masunas' yard. And we're all up in the tree. We're going, Bobby!
I jumped the fence, thinking, I got this fat bastard beat. And I turned around, he was right behind me.
He looks back, and my father's just like an Olympic hurdler. Shit!
And my neighbors had 2 gates, one on each side. They had 8 kids, and so, just like our gate, it was always open. Oh no.
He starts running to one gate, and he runs to one gate, and it's locked. He starts running to the other gate, and halfway there, my father caught him. And by then, we were down, and I come to him, and he's smacking my brother.
And my brother Michael was coming to the rescue. So Michael saw a bat on the ground, and he picked it up, and he was about ready to hit him with it.
Realizing it's a wiffle ball bat, he looked at him and was like, oh shit.
Before I pooped my pants, I dropped the bat, and I took off.
And they were down at the creek for a long time. The creek is where we used to play. They knew our dad couldn't find us there, so they went down there and hid for a long time.
Right.
My mom was definitely in charge, no question about it.
Very, very strong woman. Very strong woman.
My mom loved puzzles. So we do puzzles together and have all sorts of, she always had the radio playing. She always got the words wrong by just just a little bit.
She picked me up after school. I used to do the grocery shopping with her because we had to have 2 baskets. She couldn't do it by herself. And she's driving crazy, and she's like cursing at drivers. And I finally said, Mom, what's the matter? I said, God damn it, I'm pregnant again. She said, don't tell anybody. So we were home, and the doorbell rings, and it was one of the neighbors. And I remember opening the door, and the neighbor's there, and she goes, oh, Jane, no. No, my mother's standing there. Yes.
All my education means squat. I look at the way that I teach children, and her influence is still so heavy this far past in my life.
She was ahead of her time. She really was a modern woman, and we all get our sense of humor from her as well. So she was, I think, a really positive influence on all of us in that way.
I think my dad I used to build a lot of stuff with him. We built the fireplace, and we started building the building we never finished in the backyard.
And he'd fall asleep like that. He'd lay down, put his leg up.
I always said, I'm not going to be like my dad, but I am like my dad, and I like it. And I hope Thomas is like me and does the right thing, and that's all I try to do, just do what's right, and that's what he did in his own way.
Right.
After my parents were married 25 years, then my dad started cooking. And so one of those kids were out already, and it was really Bill and I who got that end of it. And then once he started cooking, then pizza was gourmet. It was no longer a snack, but it was gourmet.
I had the big rule, once you ate, you couldn't go back in the water for 30 minutes because they convinced us all that we cramp up and die, but it was really so that they could have 30 minutes and not worry because no kid would be in the water.
But the best picture always loved is at my wedding, they were just walking through and they snapped a picture of them. And I honestly believe that was the last time they were holding hands and, they actually had really fun together. Just in case you didn't, there was a fly going.